According to founder and CEO of Nigerian private aviation firm Falcon Aerospace, Achum, raising money in Nigeria is difficult due to high interest rates and Africa's poor banking understanding of asset-backed financing. Our company just raised $10 million for its subsidiary Viva Jets, with the funding coming from London-based CLG Capital. Achum spoke with Arise business correspondent Reuters Adiri in Casablanca at the Africa Financial Summit. Let's have a look.
All right, it is, of course, the Africa Financial Summit here in Casablanca, Morocco. Partnership, of course, between Jeune Afrique, International Finance Corporation, the Kingdom of Morocco, and Arise News has been here taking the pulse of business leaders, executives on the theme for this year's edition, which, of course, is unlocking the financial might of Africa and galvanizing domestic capital and scaling it. So I want to find out how realistic that is. We have an executive with us on the African continent in the aviation sector. We're happy to have him again. We've met him and spoken to him here before. Achum, CEO of the Falcon Aerospace Limited, which is the umbrella company for one of the brands, which is Viva Jets, CEO of Viva Jets as well. You're welcome, sir. Good to see you. Good to have you here again.
Thank you very much, Reuters. Always a pleasure.
So I want to get your thoughts on this theme about raising capital from within Africa and whether or not it can scale across the company. As a business person who needs to raise funding for his business, what do you make of that theme, honestly speaking?
Well, I mean, to my amazement, we heard today that $4 trillion is in the African economy available for lending, right? Even though it's a $2.5 trillion economy. And I mean, that speaks to the amount of leverage that businesses can potentially take on, you know. But interesting from Mr. AIG, you know, on the fact that the capital isn't the problem, it's the plumbing, right? How do you cascade or structure the capital to flow from sitting in the banks or pension funds or wherever it is to the actual, you know, engine of the economy, which is SMEs who need the funds to, you know, energize the continent.
Okay, so you raised some money. I'm going to get to that, and congrats, we're going to get to it. But before we get to this money you've raised for your business, can you just talk about the experience of trying to raise funding in Africa? Just, you know, your journey.
So we've more or less been debt focused, right? And in the last, you know, 1 year, it's been a difficult market, especially in Nigeria, with interest rates, you know, holding at 32%, right? We had raised about 4.5 billion locally from one of the financial institutions in Nigeria. But the main problem here is, you know, African banks don't really understand asset financing, which is, you know, one of our key financing structures for us in the aviation space. Even though that space is opening up right now, but traditionally, you know, what we've seen is shorter amortization, high interest rates, chances of repayment are almost zero, you know. So it's been a very difficult space, but we of course understand that there has been huge macroeconomic headwinds that warranted, you know, hikes or upsurge in interest rates. But if we're really going to energize this continent, Rotus, there's no way we can sustain lending at double-digit interest rates, short amortizations, and you know, it's clearly reflective of the very close risk profile that lenders have, you know, typically won or shown when lending to SMEs.
See, this is why we want to talk to people who are on the ground doing business and try to raise money. It's the honest assessments that we appreciate. So let's get to it now. Congratulations. You raised $10 million from TLG Capital. We understand one of the banks in Nigeria, Wema Bank, was also part of that. Can you talk to us about the process of I don't know, how long it took to get in discussions, raising the money, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, it was tough, but it was also interesting because even though we came out of it with a better balance sheet, we also emerged out of that process as a better organization, right? What that did for us in clear financial terms brought down our interest expense easily by half, increased our amortization because at some point we were even using as much as 21% of our revenues to service our debt. But
Wow.
with the lending from TLG, that freed up free cash flow for us, and it essentially gives us more appetite to risk, makes the balance sheet look much better, right? And this is what we're talking about here. TLG from day one, even if they've never done business in aviation before. They were very keen to understand the business. Of course, we also had to be very transparent with them, and that gave them a lot of comfort. And we were able to crystallize that deal, I believe, in 5 months, start to finish.
21% of your revenues on
Yeah,
servicing
yeah,
debt.
yeah.
That is that is pretty eye popping. So, well, so now I understand. Now, I mean, if one wants to ask you, we're talking about raising capital within Africa, and then you're going outside to London to raise capital, and somebody asks you, okay, well, why didn't you raise the money here? You've explained it to us. I mean, they've given you more affordable terms, longer amortization, and lower rates. And that's what just needs to be replicated on the continent, I guess, from banks.
Plus, also, a partnership feel to it, right? For most, financial institutions, is here's your term sheets, here's the loan, and we wait for our repayments, But with the private credit from TLG, it was more like a partnership. They could provide different assistances, such as, consultants that could help us with ESG, even now we are looking to go further to do, the credit ratings with Augusto and Data Pro. And you emerge not just with a better balance sheet, like I said, but you emerge as a better organization into in.
Gotcha. So how will the funds be deployed? What do you plan on using? What do you want to, as far as operations and so on?
So first of all, we've refinanced our legacy debt, and we are now more or less looking to add additional airplanes to the fleet. We are also investing in our fleet modernization. A huge chunk of that money is going into restoration of our airplanes, and more or less just making us fit for the future.
Okay, for those that haven't watched prior interviews, of course you're in the a private aviation space
Yeah.
right now. So in fact, I'm going to give you a chance to talk more about that. As an entrepreneur, your whole outlook is to spot gaps and to
Yeah.
fill those gaps,
Yeah.
right? The last time we had you a year ago, or was it 2 years ago? We've talked to you more than once now. You were talking about the challenges with traveling in Africa as far as
Yeah.
commercial flights,
Yeah.
the visa issues and so on and so forth. For those who would say, well, as a private aviation provider, you're profiting off that because you're providing a service for those who would be frustrated by commercial travel. So do you want to see commercial travel get better? Because won't that impact you? How do you see it?
Absolutely. You have to look at the success stories, right? Look at Europe, look at America, look at the Middle East. You'll see that commercial aviation has also grown at the same rate private aviation has grown, because there are complementarities between each other, right? And both arms of transport are basically trying to solve connectivity issues. In Africa today, we have massive connectivity challenges, as you know, and we see ourselves as partners in progress, right? I flew here via airline, right? And commercial aviation would always be the backbone of air travel. But for business aviation, the niche where we play, we are there to complement the efforts of the airlines. Business aviation will never be bigger than commercial aviation. right? But I mean, to answer you directly, we also want to see robust commercial. If it, that we want to see robustness in that commercial space, we want to see it grow, and we want to complement that growth.
Final question for you. It's why this is November that we're speaking. What are the peak periods for private aviation? Like it's the end of the year now. People will be flying. Diaspora Nigerians will be flying in to celebrate with their family members and so on. I mean, it's all over the world. It's festive season. What is this? Is business going to pick up for you, or what are the peak periods for private aviation and so on? How do you see it?
So we don't have as much of a steep curve as commercial aviation has, right? Where you have spikes in certain periods like the festivities or, because as much as people term business aviation as luxury, the truth is when I look at 90% of the stories behind our flights, you see that they are actually essential travels, right? Of course, the December period is always busy, right? But so is November, so is October, so is September. Today we have, you know, a huge demand backlog that we cannot even fill because we don't have the airplanes to marshal those demands. So yes, there would always be the traditional non-essential travel during the festivity periods, but we don't really have such a steep curve like the commercial airlines do.
All right. Chukwuemeka Achum, CEO, founder, Falcon Aerospace Limited, also, of course, Viva Jets. Thank you so much for talking to us, and congrats again on the capital raise.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.